My name is Ibrahim Olaise. Olaise, I mean, most people cannot say my second name. Sometimes I joke and they say, you have to take a GRE to be able to pronounce my name, so things like that. My project is on food insecurity in Georgetown, Massachusetts. And before I introduce my project, previous to starting my project, or going through this project, I tried to do another ambitious project, which I happen to be ambitious as the previous speaker. And I work for a human service provider in Massachusetts who, it's a major organization that implements projects for mental health population within Massachusetts. And I had been working in various programs. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of clients. I mean, the level of mental health care in the US is growing in leaps and bounds every year. And after working in all these projects, I mean, I realized that more than 90% of all our clients were smokers. And I thought that was interesting. Not only were they smokers, they were not able to pay their bills to stay in their own housing, though they were spending all this money. So I thought, oh, this is an interesting project. I'm going to pursue that. So I tried to pursue that through the organization, but unfortunately, it was not good for business. You can figure out why, because I mean, if you pursue such a project, I mean, to a certain extent, it can be used to discredit the organization, and there are also other policy issues that are involved there. So you have to get a lot of approval and those things. So I didn't end up pursuing that project. So for the first years, you can do that if you'd like to. So I went and looked around in my local community in Georgetown, and there's a very small food pantry there, which you're going to get into details. And I was talking to them and finding out is there any possibility for a project here? But before I get into that again, I'm just going to give you some details so that you understand the issue of food insecurity in the United States. If you come from a different region outside the US, food insecurity might look very different. And so one of our students came to me and asked me about, you Americans talk about food insecurity, have you? And I said, so I didn't know how to respond to that because first of all, I'm not American, and the second thing is the definition of food insecurity. So food insecurity in the US used to be defined in terms of hunger, but that term has been kind of discontinued in a way when you're talking about food insecurity. So we're talking about families that are not able to have maybe 3 meals in a day. But also it's moved to being defined in terms of the healthiness of the food. So I'm going to read a quote from an organization called Project Bread that focuses much on food insecurity. They say, the opposite of hungry is not full, but healthy. So when you get that context, then you're able to understand the food insecurity issue in the US. It's a wicked problem, I can use that term. So in the United States, about 35.4% of single women with children are more exposed to food insecurity than the rest of the population. In Massachusetts alone, about 700,000 people are food insecure. This is according to research by Project Bread in 2013. In 2010, the estimate cost for food insecurity related issues, obesity, diabetes, and all that, was about $130 billion. In 2011, 8.3% of seniors at the age of 60 were food insecure. And for somebody who's employed in a food insecure household, it costs them about $600 a year. So it's a huge issue. So let me get into this project. So Georgetown, it's a pretty small town located in the northeast of Boston, and it's right there. It's part of the Essex County. In the middle, okay. Right there is Georgetown, and it's surrounded by the Essex County. And it's about 8,000 people living in Georgetown, and 96.5% of them are white, which means I'm one of the few black folks around there. So I usually joke and I say to people from my church, if you see something black, it's probably me. They think it's funny. So, the town is very well economically developed. When I say economically developed, I'm talking about the average family income is about $110,000. But also, it's a very social services deprived community. In other words, and this is, I think, it's very typical of the terrain in the United States, where in the suburbs, when the income is high, then you don't get the services for the social security services. Okay. So here's the project. I started working with a local church-based food pantry, and it provides grocery support to about 25 family households on a weekly basis. And the 25 households add up to about 100 people because this community attracts families with small children because there are many advantages of living in that area. For example, the education is very good. If you go to those schools there, they have a high school completion of 92%. You know, so they're very good advantages, but also there are challenges, and the challenges is the cost of living, because the income is high, the cost of living is really high. So at the beginning of the project, the problem was project funding, which happens to be an issue on all the projects that we undertake. Funding is an issue, but that was what was the problem at the beginning. As I dug deeper into the project through different tools that we learned at the program, including surveys, including talking to people that are getting the benefits, to the doing interviews and all that. Well, the project started changing, and this is why when we did our survey, we found that 50% of our clients include single women with children or the elderly. That is the most vulnerable population to food insecurity in the U.S. So it was very interesting to see that that connection. Let me mention a little bit about why that population is vulnerable in that area. I think what came out was, since that was a community that was well to do for the families came in, but because of the divorce rate, there was most of the women ended up staying with the children, but also there were stay-at-home moms. So they were really exposed because they, like Aruna, had stayed at home to take care of the children, and so they are rusty. But also the child care in that area is not cheap. So it's a question of, do I go to work and spend all the money in paying for child care? So it was quite a different, challenging take to do. So we found out that there was invisible poverty in that area, and that the clients were not qualified for state and federal support. So for you to receive food support from the federal and state agency, you have to earn a certain percentage of money, which is 200% above the poverty level that is set by the state, by the federal government, which is about $11,000 a year for a family of one. So these parents who are there, whether they are receiving child support, they are higher than they could receive the funding and all that. So after doing all the research and putting all the tools together, we found that the organization did not have the structure to attract funding or to use the funding appropriately very well. It was, they didn't have a mission, but also they didn't have the funds. So we started working on that, and we developed mission structure, a mission statement. We developed an organization structure. All this involved a lot of processes and activities. So the idea is to increase funding, but also, I mean, you want a project that is sustainable. So what are they doing right now? They are currently thinking in terms of starting a daycare, so that now you can make it becomes an income generating activity, but also dealing with an issue, a social issue. So you're integrating into an issue there. We're also looking into developing employment within that system too, so that by providing childcare, the other woman is able to go to work. Those are part of the trainings that we did. Success is equals planning. We did fundraising, teamwork. Project outcome, we established an organizational structure and mission. We revamped the leadership and volunteer team, and established an integrative and sustainable model that generates income and employment. And they're still implementing the fundraising strategy, which was the initial problem. I think what I learned is that at the end of this project is the need to integrate in dealing with a complex issue. Issues are dynamic and they're changing, but also they have different angles, and you have to find the leverage point. And that's it for the day. Any questions?